Hello friends! I decided to do a video instead of typing all of this out for my strategy descriptions. And I do have several strategies that I use to help juggle all the balls. I am in many ways sort of a ball addict. I like to sign up for everything I can and be uber involved, and sometimes that bites me in the butt because I spread myself too thin. So I've had to learn how to say no, and also how to manage all of that so that, because one of my part of my compass rose is if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And so if you're trying to do too many things, it's actually proven humans are not actually good multitaskers. Middle schoolers in particular are even worse at multitasking. So that's a myth, right, that you can successfully multitask. So one of the things that works for me is Ohio. You might have heard of it, but it's only handle it once. And a couple of ways that this works for me. So only handle it once. If you're going to touch it, have every intention of finishing off, taking care of it, doing what it needs to do. And so I apply Ohio to my emails. When I go into email, I do not open and read an email if I don't intend to take care of it right in that moment, which it's like a real, you have to focus and you have to be intentional about doing that. But in that case, my email acts like a to-do list. And so I go in and I see it, I handle it, and then it's done. So you really have to set aside the time to say, I'm going to take care of this. There's Dave Stewart Jr. He talks about how to treat your email like real mail, and put it into boxes. So I use a lot of folders in my email. There are certain things, it's like, oh, I just, my order has been processed and it's coming. So I've opened that and I put it into my orders, and then when it arrives, I delete that email. I have other emails, it's like, hey, please do this survey. Instead of opening it, seeing that it wants me to do a survey and saying, I'll get to it later, I do the survey, and then I delete that email. Ohio also applies to my house. So only handle it once. I like to touch wood as few times as possible. So if I'm going to move wood, I'm going to move it where it needs to go. If I'm going to fold laundry, I'm going to fold it and it's going to go right in the drawer. Instead of picking something up and placing it somewhere else, I'm going to find where it's supposed to live, and maybe that's the trash. So I try not to shuffle things from one place to the other. I very intentionally do it, take care of it, and put it where it needs to be. Same with grading. So if I'm going to process assignments, I sit down, I'm only going to handle it once. I'm going to grade them all, and I will take one class and be like, okay, I'm going to get all of these done. Instead of being like, I'm going to do a couple and then I'm going to jump over here, or I'm going to read part of it, but I'll get back to it later. Nope, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to handle it, put the grade into Jump Rope, and now I'm done. So I do everything at once. That's Ohio. That's my strategy for just making sure that I'm touching it as few times as possible and then saving time. So that leaves me time for another strategy, which is I employ the Ivy Lee method. I'm one of those people that I make a plan for the next day. So I might walk in, roll in right on time, but I have my list and I have my agenda and I know what are the priorities for the next day because I've set that aside. Oh, the lighting is weird. I set that aside the night before. The Ivy Lee method, a little story behind that is it was some company, I should probably Dunlop or somebody, had hired Ivy Lee to maximize his employees' time. And he's like, okay, I'm going to pay you. And he said, I can come in and I can do this. Ivy Lee said, I can create a strategy for your employees and you are going to see productivity improve, and you're going to pay me what you think it's worth at the end. And what he did is he trained them on this method, which is that you identify 6 tasks. So at the end of your workday, you identify 6 tasks that need to happen for the next day. Those 6 tasks that you have written down, you then prioritize them from most important to the least important. And then the next day, you focus one task at a time, starting with the thing that's most important. Here's the key. You do not stop. So it's kind of like that only handle it once. Once you start a task, go with it until it's done. You don't move on to another task. You do not add tasks that weren't originally on there until those are done. And then at the end of your day, when you have those 6 tasks completed, you sit and you make your list for the next day. Now, for me, there are certain things like I can't help it if it's interrupted, so I have to. Like if I'm working on something and then I get a call to go to a room, but I return back to that task until it's done. And there's also like you have to set some limits. For me, I have a really natural limit. Like I have to go pick up my kids. So I've like have to leave school by 5:30 in order to go pick up my kids. So it's a good ending point, but it's also really important to set that boundary for yourself between work and home of when does it end? And if you haven't gotten all 6 tasks done, whatever you didn't get done, immediately carry that over to the next day. And I would say if you continuously never get more than 2 done, you need to reflect on what are you identifying as the tasks that you need to do or what's getting in your way of getting more of those done. It's very reasonable, and I have to be sort of give myself grace if I don't get all 6 done, but I was working towards them. And then you repeat. So that's the Ivy Lee method. The other thing that I try to do is I try not to multitask, but if I have one ball, I'm going to try to aim for many targets. So an example is when I am cooking, right? So at home, I'm the person who buys the groceries and does all the meal prep, that I will often create my menu, and I try to do a lot of prep. I'll set aside, you'll hear about my last strategy, which is Hour of Power, and I will, like if I'm doing, I don't know, like do a roast chicken, right? So this is the perfect example. So I've got a roast chicken. I'm going to roast a chicken. That's Sunday dinner. I'm then going to make 2 more meals from that roasted chicken. So one ball, I spent the time roasting the chicken, but then we're going to have chicken broccoli Alfredo, and we're also going to have chicken vegetable soup. And that chicken vegetable soup, I'm going to stick in the freezer, and then that's an easy meal that I can have another night. How does that work at school? Well, I often think thematically. So if it's something that is resonating with our resilience team, then it's also something that's going to come up in the weekly emails that I send. And it's also something that's going to be brought up with our talking circles and with our star assemblies. So one idea, waves of change. That's something that's going to be resonating this month here with our group for Resiliency PD. So that means I'm going to be thinking about that in many different facets and facilitating conversations about that. So I'm not trying to constantly invent new ideas. Take a good idea and spread it around and hit many targets with it. Same thing happens in instruction. I do that a lot with my instruction. If I'm working on this skill, it's like, how can I apply it to reading? So if I'm actively listening, how am I actively reading? How am I also going to be an active planner in my writing? And so I would use a lot of those same strategies. It's good for me, for my planning and consistency, but it's also really good for kids because they like that consistency and they're taking something that is familiar to them, that it's comfortable, but then they can apply it to a new situation. Then my last strategy is Hour of Power. Now, when I was in college, there was a completely different definition of Hour of Power. I don't know if you're familiar, but this one is, I sort of know myself and I'm a bit competitive, and so I will actually set a timer. I use Hour of Power for cleaning my house. I've engaged my kids in this. We have 1 hour and we're going to bang it out. We are going to race the clock. We're going to do a good job and we're going to get a lot of stuff done in that hour. Ivy Lee method, we set our list of what we want to do. And then in 1 hour, we challenge ourselves of how much of that can we get done? So all the vacuuming can get done. Laundry can get put away. Dog poop in the backyard can get picked up because we divide and conquer. I get busy. It actually works as exercise because you're racing around. The heart is pumping, and so it produces endorphins. Then you also have that satisfaction of checking off the list, everything you got done. But then there's an end point, right? The timer goes off, you celebrate what you got done, and then you go have fun. And so never forget to put something fun, something that's for you, something that's with your family on that list of things to do for the day. I do that at school too. When I had to grade research papers and I would have 117 eighth grade research papers looking at me, there is no way I was going to sit until they were all done. But every day I would say, I'm going to do an hour's worth. And I would challenge myself, how well can I do them and how many can I get done? And then there has to be an end, because your brain, you're mush after that, and you got to move on to something else. So Hour of Power, one ball, many targets. Try to get as much bang for your buck as you can. The Ivy League method helps you prioritize of what you should even be trying to accomplish. And then, to be as efficient as possible, only handle it once. If you pick it up, take care of it and be done with it. Check it off the list. That's sort of how I manage a bunch of my madness. I hope that you will share your strategies too, and I'm looking forward to learning from you. Thanks.